Good evening, everyone. We're back live with our weekly virtual masterclasses on design thinking. And tonight I'm talking about applying design thinking to products and services. So far, I've covered themes like applying design thinking to people, systems, and innovation. So I'm going around our diagram which shows the core components that build up businesses, which is people, systems, innovation, products, money, and growth. So today I'm on the topic of products, and generally we talk about products, but with term products we mean products and services. So I'm just going to wait for a couple of people to jump in, so I'm not talking to myself. Meanwhile, I'll give you an update on my hair situation. It's getting to a point where my hair probably wants to have an Instagram account of its own. So I'm thinking about setting up an Instagram account for my hair. Now, if anyone has ideas on what the thinking behind that should be, please let me know. So I'm going to start in a little bit. I will wait for at least one person to join, and then I'll start talking. With regards to my Instagram hair account, I was thinking about doing some sort of thing where there's like a time lapse on it of me with my hair every day or every once a week or whatever, because it's getting out of control, but I don't really want to cut it. Hi Julia, thanks for joining. So I'll start because you're first person and other people will join. So we're talking about applying design thinking to products and services. And products and services are often considered by companies as the core aspect of the company. To some extent, this is rightly so. Companies should consider products and services as their core aspect, because ultimately that is what people consume, okay, and people pay for products or services. In our model, we're talking about people being the most important aspect, because without people you can't really create products and services and the systems around them. So really, products and services are a byproduct of people thinking systematically about something and innovatively, and off the back of those two we have products and services. Products are the core aspect of company experience, which is typically designed. So if you're thinking about fashion industry and things that people buy to wear, both on their shoes, on their feet, and on like as jackets and t-shirts and so on, fashion designers will literally design the living hell out of those products, because that is what really creates differentiation between them, one brand and another brand. Many products are of such a nature that they're just standalone. So for example, this t-shirt is just a t-shirt, right? So I bought this t-shirt and I'm wearing it, and it's just a physical product. There is no sort of service associated with it as such. There is no kind of wearable aspect to, okay, I'm wearing the t-shirt, but there's no wearable device that goes with it that kind of tracks the temperature of the t-shirt, or that kind of pings my location as to where I am or how often I wore it, etc. So many products, the nature of the products is that it's just a physical thing that you kind of use. It's not connected in any way, shape or form. There's no service associated with it. But most of the time we have a situation where products come along with service. To some extent, this t-shirt, even though it's something that I wear, it has been serviced to me, as in presented to me in the shop somewhere, where some probably you know, kind and polite shop assistant has been assisted me to buy this. And if I bought it online, then the online service where I bought the t-shirt is the service that goes alongside that product. Overall point here to recognize is that most products come along with services, and most services are best if they are coupled with a product, and probably there's no way in terms of decoupling these things. So typically we'd think of, like, let's say a restaurant experience. If you go into a restaurant, yes, you're there to eat the food for most part, but the food will be served to you in some way, shape or form, usually by a waiter, and that's the service aspect of it. Now if you're going down the road here, we've got some sort of new McDonald's that has these kind of automated tills in it, where students usually ordering the food from the touch screens, and then they kind of just pick it up from the little bars where they pick up the food from. So these kind of services are changing in nature. The product is staying more or less the same, but the services can change in nature. Either way, in a restaurant, you're going there to buy food. That food is the concrete product, like the t-shirt, but it's served to you by system or people, or combination of systems and people, and your overall experience of that restaurant is the food plus the service. So if the food is great and the service is rubbish, chances are your overall experience will be rubbish or not so great. If the service is great but the food is rubbish, chances are again the overall experience will not be great, so you won't be going back there. So businesses have to be successful, businesses have to get the product and the service aspect of it like nicely designed to have people enjoy the overall experience, but also come back there again and enjoy it over and over again. So there is an important aspect to talk about in terms of products. When I worked with Rolly in the last couple of years, we delineated two types of products, and products, what we call product with a small p, which in the case of Rolly was the actual physical instruments that they were making, because Rolly makes these amazing innovative instruments. So that's the product with a small p, and then product with a large P is the entire experience of the company. So every touch point that the customer experiences, whether it's the support, whether it's some sort of flyer or leaflet that people see, or one of Rolly adverts on Facebook or on YouTube, or even experiencing Rolly lunch breaks with other company employees, or one of their community gatherings and so on. All those things make up the product with a large P, which is the experience. And so what has been happening over the last bunch of decades, and some companies have done this for decades, but in sort of recent years, companies have kind of maybe lost sight of some of this stuff, insofar that the large P has been lost somewhat in the pursuit of sell more of the small p product. And so when the large P, the experience, gets lost in this kind of chase of like selling more of the small product, the brand typically takes a knock on in a negative way, and the long-term company future and strategy suffers because of it. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that the large P product is the strategic experiential aspect of the company, and then it's in most companies it's filled up with lots of small P product ranges. And so that's very important for design thinkers to bear in mind that yes, a small P product might make sense and seem like a good idea in next 3 to 6 months, but it might play negatively into the large P product experience of the company in those 6 to 12 months. And we're always looking in design thinking to marry up the short-term gains with long-term strategic view. Both of those need to make sense, just like products and services need to work together, because in the restaurant, as I said, if you have great food with rubbish service, you're not going to go back there because you will remember the rubbish service. Important psychological aspect here is that if this is human mind, I was saying good example of a company that does this well is John Lewis. Good example, John Lewis owns Waitrose. Waitrose is an example of a supermarket, unlike Tesco, which I always like to diss for terrible services and products. Actually, Tesco known for selling horse burgers advertised as beef burgers, and many other things, but also terrible service where the staff will sort of chuck things at you or like ignore you for 5 minutes because they're doing some sort of administrative task behind the till. With Waitrose, you have Waitrose is an interesting example because Waitrose has incentivized all their employees by giving them shares. Okay, so all the employees of Waitrose are share owners of the company, and Waitrose has some of the highest quality products out of all the supermarkets. So typically Waitrose beef burgers, right, or beef steaks, they're the prime beef steaks because Waitrose has negotiated deals with farmers in UK to get the first cuts of the beef steaks. And then when Waitrose gets supplied by beef, then all the other supermarkets get supplied by beef. So they're always getting the second quality beef steaks. But more importantly, in terms of service quality, at Waitrose, all the employees are specifically instructed by management that if a customer comes up to them and says, excuse me please, where is the halloumi cheese in this place? The employee is instructed to stop everything they're doing at the point when the customer asks. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They take the customer by the hand all the way to halloumi place, show it to them, and then ask a follow-on question. All right, you found the halloumi, is there anything else that I can help you with? And if the customer says, no, that's okay, thank you very much, then they go back to the previous task that they've been doing, whether it was stacking shelves or whatever. So that's specifically there to ensure that the customer service is always absolutely top-notch. Waitrose, a couple of years ago, introduced this really cool concept, actually, of giving people daily free coffee. There's interesting aspect of that is that, one, it's showcasing the quality of Waitrose ingredients. It's got all this kind of organic milk that they fill up coffees with. So if you get a flat white there, it's like really nice, organic, cool, good grain and so on. And it's free. What does that do to you? It's like, oh, I'm going to go to Waitrose every day to get my free coffee. And guess what? While you go through the queue and everything else, you'll pick up another one thing, and before you even know, you're in Waitrose every day. Very cool hook to kind of bring people in. Brings me nicely into the theme of great products have repeatability factor baked into them. So this is why a lot of food places are very popular, because people like to eat chicken and chips and pizzas and all that kind of stuff. You know, once the sort of stomach is used to these kind of things, you'll go to Pizza Hut quite often, and your Nando's and Burger King and so on, because you know, you just kind of know what you're getting, and there's a repeatability factor to it. Getting the repeatability factor baked into some of the other types of products and services is often tricky, maybe even impossible. So this is a big challenge for design thinkers to work out ways in which people can be brought back into the experience. And so so I think Waitrose has done extremely well to create a repeatable visitation off the back of that free coffee cup, which seemingly looks like, you know, they're spending money on it, but actually for them it's worthwhile investment. Otherwise they would have to spend money on flyering, lifting, marketing, all this kind of stuff, instead of actually giving customers real value, which that coffee cup is. So products over the decades have become increasingly more complex, and this is one of the reasons why, again, design thinking is proliferating, because you know what happens? Someone, typical employee today, goes and works at somewhere like General Electric or Pepsi or Coke or Procter and Gamble and so on. They join the company and they realize these companies have thousands of products and thousands of online services and so on. Great example being, recently I worked on some research stuff for Disney, and it's like, oh wow, Disney's cool, Disney's great. So many kind of fun stories that we've all grown up with and so on. But then you realize Disney owns Marvel, Disney owns Pixar, Disney owns Star Wars, Disney owns all of their IP, and then Disney does a lot of partnerships with other companies like Lego, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. And so they've got this huge range of products which are all instantiated into different types. So for example, your Spider-Man, you can buy Spider-Man cards, like those trading cards, or you can buy Spider-Man comic books, or you can buy Spider-Man movies, you can download Spider-Man apps for iPads, iPhones, all this kind of stuff. There's all sorts of Spider-Man merchandise, films on DVD, films on download from Netflix, God knows what. All the stuff, printed little toys, this size, this size, this size, this size, sold through Amazon, sold through their stock, their store, sold through another third-party store. Hugely complex services and products range. Disney themselves don't know what stuff they're selling anymore. So with design thinking, you know, we are looking at all this stuff and making more sense of it as a product range, as a service range, as a marriage of all these offerings, and making sense of it going forward into what is increasingly more and more unpredictable time and space that we're living in, with virtual reality, with all sorts of artificial intelligence experiences, bots, Internet of Things, and so on. So companies are having to reframe. Companies are having to reframe their product offering to sell things that are no longer individual little Spider-Man toys or one-offs, but are looking at selling bigger experiences, that product with large P, where customers can really buy a range of small products with an intent of collecting them or ramping up to a greater experience. So reframing and design thinking for products and services is huge skill within design thinking skill set and mindset. So we obviously cover this in our workshops, and it's something that it's possible to kind of instill in our psychology. It links back to sort of asking questions and really thinking about what the products and service really is. And so each product and service is subject to a product life cycle. Hi, James. And that product life cycle covers 4 distinct areas, and you know, even MBAs know this, but it's worth pointing this out. The products are initially introduced into the marketplace, then they experience, if they work, if there is a product market fit, they then grow, they get taken up by customers, and they reach a point of maturity at which, you know, it becomes like, okay, all the people, or majority of the people that are reachable and that are interested in the product or service have got it, and they start then declining because people are either bored of it or they passed their sell-by date, so to speak, and they've become less relevant for the marketplace. So another challenge for design thinkers and companies is to ensure that the product launches and the product range works in such a way that as a big hit product that has reached the level of maturity exists in the market, companies need to sort of launch another product or service to, you know, keep the momentum going. Big, I don't need to tell you this, but like a big company that's suffering from this, or it's showing its signs of potentially suffering, is Apple, which is reaching the kind of very late maturity stages of iPhone sales and popularity and so on, and it's kind of tinkering on the top here, as in like, is it going to start dropping off in popularity if some other competitor comes on the market that really can rival iPhone as a product? Apple is potentially in a big trouble going forward because they will have to release another product that has that kind of hockey stick growth and curve and take up and so on. Apple Watch hasn't really seen this sort of take up as far as I gather, and they kind of list it as other products in their management reports at the end of the year. And so one of the examples that I wanted to talk about in this set, and we wanted to list examples of sort of non-typical companies, because we will often hear examples from Tesla, Apple, Facebook, Airbnb, Google, Uber, GoPro, etc. They're all design-led, design thinking enabled companies, not necessarily still to great enough extent, but you know, they have a notion of design is present inside of them very strongly. We'll look at some other examples that are not so often used. But so in this product lifecycle and the reframed offering, companies today are making software, hardware, and cloud services, and increasingly are making these ecosystems as products. And in software terminology, you will see software as a service, SaaS, but you will also see PaaS, which is platform as a service, where companies create platforms that are tool sets that enable other people to build on top of that. So for example, something like Salesforce is really a platform that enables other companies to build and hack on top of it to build Salesforce enabled other services. So it's like Salesforce is really a PaaS that enables SaaS and so on. So this becomes very, very complicated, and design thinkers are required to make sense of this as it currently stands, but also then work out strategies as to how to grow this. And certainly with Rolly, the music making software, hardware, cloud service is an ecosystem that needs to work together. And so is Tesla building an ecosystem for transportation, because their cars are connected, they're self-drivable, they got like satellite connections and communications and so on. So it's not a car company, it's a transport grid, which that ecosystem is really the product of Tesla. And so more and more as companies like Tesla and Salesforce and Google and Apple's of this world are kind of taking over, other companies are pushed to think more in ecosystem terms versus platform or service or basic products, because people tend to expect, if they buy a piece of hardware, they expect it to have a nice accompanying piece of software and to be connectable to the network, etc., etc. So this is why nowadays you'll buy a set of speakers and okay, they sound okay, but the most important thing is that it hooks up to your iPhone so that you can play music from your iPhone without any cabling, etc., etc. So the connectivity of the speaker is more important than the sound. Whereas before it was like, it's the sound, and you will plug in all these kind of cables, and you know, then it's like, actually it's not really practical. I don't want to always be listening to music in my garage because that's the only place where I can house these speakers. So I'm a big fan, and I'm going to get at some point. I haven't got that yet, but they're these speakers that go into the bicycle bottle holders, and they're splash proof. So you can just, as you cycle, you put the speaker into the bottle holder and you can just play music as you cycle. So I'd have my Strava app on my cycling bars, the handlebars, and then I can play music from my phone via Bluetooth onto the speaker and augment my cycling experience by playing music quite loudly in the context where the speaker really sits nicely. So that sort of connected mini sort of ecosystem speaker is much more valuable for that target audience than something that sounds great but it isn't usable on the bike. And a lot of designers and design thinkers will play into these specific contexts, and then they will tell stories with the speakers. They'll tell stories that you can use them on the side of a pool, or if you're having a bath, there's like a lot of splashing around. You can listen to music in your bathroom, which again obviously expands and enhances the experience of a bath. So this is how design thinkers think of products and services, playing them into the context of the user and thinking broader as well as deeper into the offering. The other aspect of product and service design that's been touted about by management for quite some time, but like management science has always talked about this in terms of how do we make more money, right? How do we make more money? So personalization is what I'm talking about, and typically, personalization will be talked about in management sciences, like changing the colors of cars and so on, and those kind of things, which are quite sort of, okay, color is important, but what people increasingly nowadays want is their own personal product which they've sort of configured themselves. So that personalization can be taken to a point where if you think about the car experience, if you're buying a car, you can either pick a car which is either red, blue, green or black, or you can have a personalization type experience or service online where you actually kind of color the car and kind of configure all these things, and you get much more sense of the fact that you've configured this car for your own preferences, and that gives you more of a psychological buy-in into that car because you feel that you've configured it yourself and you personalized it. With things like software and services, always, like if you think of a good restaurant experience, if you go into a restaurant 2 or 3 times, a good waiter or a butler will remember your preferences, so they will say, would you like fish and chips again, sir, like last time, and no ketchup or extra ketchup, depending on what your preference was. So you'll find that quite nicely personalized to you versus sort of having to reorder again the same thing that you had last time. Or the butler would really kind of recommend to you what they might think you like, based on sort of things that you've said to them that you like. So I like fish dishes, but I don't like beef dishes, or I'm vegetarian. What vegetarian stuff can you recommend to me? So with software, we can do that quite a lot, and that's why software has been kind of eating the world, because software is that malleable thing that we can customize and personalize, and this is why, so for example, on things like Instagram, you'll have filters that you can sort of tweak yourself, and controls that like contrast and highlighting and so on. All that personalization is very, very important to create an experience. Also, personalization runs on the fact that depending on which people you follow, you'll get the feed from those people in your core feed, versus just some generic thing that you don't really care about. going off the back of that, with software and a lot of even hardware products, the big trend has been social features. So right now I'm speaking to you through this Facebook Live. It's a huge social network that also runs as a platform for other social experiences. So you see a lot of apps are enabled and powered by Facebook Connect, where, you know, when people connect to other apps via Facebook, those apps pull in the social network of the people that that user has on their Facebook. So it's easy to create other apps that already have friends, connections off the back of the existing social media platforms like Facebook. But those social features are very, very powerful and important for making products and services work and proliferate, because ultimately we humans are social animals, and yes, we want to feed ourselves and get shelter, but as soon as we find that, which most of us have around the world, we then want to socialize with others, be friendly, and sort of share that common experience that we are having on this planet. So majority of software and good products and services need to have a huge social element to them to actually proliferate, grow, and work and be experienced in a way that humans like to experience them. So baking in those social features from the outset is one of the core concerns and focuses for design thinkers. Before anything's made, it's about thinking how something like a t-shirt like this can be social. Can this t-shirt be social? That's an example of a reframe of a product, baking in more of a social capability. And so if you don't believe me that a t-shirt can be social, our friend Jeannie runs a whole company called I Trust You, which sells trust t-shirts that are about helping people hug each other and find trustworthy individuals, and there's a whole social network of people who wear I Trust You t-shirts. So a t-shirt can be a social thing. It's just that most people don't think of it, and they're in many respects missing an opportunity there. So a couple of examples I wanted to talk about in terms of companies that have created interesting products and services, or blends of products and services, that are not typically discussed in design thinking talks and so on. One that's really, really interesting and quite different is a company called Build-A-Bear. Build-A-Bear is quite popular, I think, in America, but there are Build-A-Bears in UK as well. And typically teddy bear shops will sell you a teddy bear. So you go in there and there's this teddy bear, and this teddy bear, and the children go like, oh, I want that teddy bear, and it costs £5, and children buy it, and it doesn't feel special because there's 100 of those bears in the shop, and then children see that and they're like, oh, I just got another one of those 100 bears, and they'll play with it and then they kind of chuck it away. But with Build-A-Bear, what they did is they created an entire experience inside the shop where children build their own bear. That's why it's called Build-A-Bear. But there are lots of emotional anchors during the process where towards the end of the experience, children are given like a little heart, which is sewn into the bear. So they make a wish into the heart, and then that wish is sewn into the bear, and that bear, as the children customize it through the process, each customized option costs more money, but children don't know this. And so the bear is given a birth certificate at the end based on the date, and is given a name, and the child is signed up to this network of Build-A-Bear, so that they can, parents can be contacted afterwards. But they make the wish into the heart, which is sewn into the bear, and it's their own making. And the end product, instead of costing £5, it costs £55. But the children love it, and they keep that bear for a long, long time. My son has had it like for five years, and he still sleeps with his bear called Ernie because that's his name. And so that's an example of a very, very cleverly psychologically designed product which actually makes children very happy to have this customized bear that they've built themselves, and they've gone through quite a long process to choose and pick their own custom options and make their own wish into it. Even the wish to me always kind of caught my eye and my imagination as a very, very clever aspect. And obviously all this stuff has been designed into existence. It hasn't just kind of, the shop of Build-A-Bear hasn't just fallen there in that way. And you know, these are companies that are billion-dollar companies. They're not small shops. They're like global, worldwide chains. And the owner and creator of Build-A-Bear is one of the biggest business minds in the world. She's actually a design thinker. Another example is Lego. Lego is not so, to my knowledge, not so often used as an example of design thinking kind of company, but Lego is really all about designs, and to such an extent where Lego used to be a completely free form components toy. Okay, so you just build anything that's in your imagination. It's complete personalization, complete ownership of the customer. They created a whole bunch of models which is supposed to assemble, and there's still like a whole devotion required and time put in to build a model, so therefore the end product that you build is something that you really feel ownership over, especially as a parent, when your child says, "Dad, can you build me the Star Wars ship, Enterprise ship or whatever," and it takes like 4 hours to assemble, and then you're there like for 4 hours, and like at 3 a.m. in the morning you're like, "Oh my god, I've finally assembled this thing," and the child is falling asleep and so on. But you know, as a parent, you buy into these things, both in terms of money as well as in terms of your investment of time and that customization and putting that emotion into building it. So Lego inevitably sees continuous growth and being like the world's top toy making company, even though really all it makes is the little building blocks. Quality is a hugely important aspect of Lego, and many of these companies that are doing these kind of cool products and services, so Lego building blocks always kind of fitting together nicely, and the kind of experience of clicking them together is really optimized, and the sort of sturdiness of the plastic and so on is very solid. That's kind of like very important aspect when you're building bigger models. If things go slightly off, then things won't kind of stick together properly, and it doesn't work. And so I wanted to bring two examples of companies that have kind of had growth on the product side but haven't really thought longer term strategy, and therefore they've had amazing growth but not really sort of capitalized on it as much as they could have. So example being Pokemon Go, which at one point created this kind of worldwide anarchy of people chasing these virtual monsters, and nowadays you don't really hear of anyone really playing that, because the nature of the product and the service has been that it's been incredibly popular and somehow captured people's imagination, but that sort of boredom factor and the follow-on experience has not really been there, and it's not been designed in, and as such many people have taken it up as a product, as a service, as an app, played it, and then just got bored, and now there's no kind of real clear talk about where Pokemon Go is going. Another company that's suffered from this kind of self-inflicted success failure, you might call it, is Moshi Monsters and Mind Candy with Moshi Monsters. where Moshi Monsters was a hugely popular online game that rolled off a whole franchise of other products and services. Like Moshi Monsters, you got like children wear like underpants, and there's like the cards, and then there is like printed little toy monsters and all sorts of kind of merchandise that comes off the back of Moshi Monsters franchise. Um, they really kind of sat on it too long as a product, and it was a flash game on desktop, and they never really kind of passed that on to iPad. It was a big sort of recoding job to kind of recode it into iPad experience and so on. They kind of thought, well, let's just kind of sit on this, you know, it's doing well, you know, it's making money. But lots of other Moshi related verticals like Moshi Music and other Moshi games kind of didn't really take off, and therefore Mind Candy was making loads and loads and loads of money, which they didn't sort of leverage into further investments, and now the whole company is kind of just teetering around some sort of like, God knows, kind of flatlining experience. And so companies, if they don't deploy design thinking enough and at the right stages, they will have successful products through some sort of maybe initial concrete proper thinking, and maybe even stumble over a success, but you know, it's not sustainable for the longer term because they're not thinking through these aspects that I spoke about. And just recently Amazon has released a new experience in the shopping realm, where people can just walk into shops, pick up their items that they want to buy, and just walk out without pulling out any cards and so on. So it's this kind of magical, frictionless shopping experience, which is disrupting and creating a better overall product and a service within that realm. Something that many shops and many payments providers have just kind of seen as, well, it's good enough, you know, it's just fine, it doesn't need any change and so on. So Amazon deploys a whole load of design thinking and creates something that people are sharing virally on Facebook now, going like, oh, look at this, wow, how does it work? Nobody even really kind of understands it and so on. Another quick example I want to talk about, which is a shop called Peggy Portion. Peggy Portion is a cake shop. They actually, if you go to their website, Peggy Portion talk about selling world's best cupcakes. They hired, sort of not famously, but I follow these things, so to me it's famous. They hired color psychologist consultant to consult on their brand colors and so on. So Peggy Portion website and logo and the design of everything that they do is really nicely unified around colors and imagery and visual as well as aesthetic, and all these kind of things that are really targeted towards their aspirational, mostly female audiences. And so they'll really sell a very expensive cupcake, which people are happy to pay money for because that's the kind of target audience that they're looking at, as well as very, very expensive wedding cakes that are very nicely designed. And none of this is by coincidence. It's just design thinking applied to absolutely every aspect of the company. And if you go and buy something from Peggy Portion, either through their website or in the shop, you will get absolutely immaculate service at every point, as well as this kind of designed cupcake and designed wedding cakes and all the other cakes. So you're really kind of paying loads of money for this really exceptional experience that's been thought through at every touch point exceptionally well. So product services, hugely important in every business, pivotal core thing. Again, a good example, I think I've actually only clocked on this recently, is Chobani yogurts, right? The Hamdi Ulekaya my business spiritual father, he spent 2 years designing the yogurt, right? Designing the yogurt. He had 4 bag loads of yogurt pots from other competitors that he was looking at and analyzing. Why was he doing this? Because he wanted to design the best yogurt experience in US, including the pot itself. So the yogurt is great and all that stuff, the recipe and so on, but the pot needed to be a nice experience as well, both visually and utility wise. So when they actually went to take the yogurt into big chains, to sell them in big chains, the big chains wouldn't give them the prime real estate on the shelves. Why? Because that's already bought by Danone and all these other mainstream incumbents in the yogurt space. So Hamdi knew that he was going to have some sort of top shelf out of the sight kind of position, but his yogurt pots were designed so well that people even walking past the shelves couldn't help but kind of look up and go, oh wow, look, what's that, let's try it. Once they tried it, the product was designed so well that it went viral because people were saying, you got to try this yogurt, and they sort of incentivized people on social media to share this as an experience, and how Chobani yogurt makes them feel loved and happy and all these kind of things. All of this has been designed, and now Chobani is worth $1.4 billion off the back of really just one product with 4 different flavors or 5 different flavors, but all enabled through extensive design thinking, linking into human cognition, psychology, needs, and way in which humans like to consume things, and just kind of leveraging that without even any sales force, because the product is good enough to be recommended by people mouth to mouth, no pun intended. So that's kind of the end of my overall theme here of products and services. I'm happy to accept any questions that people have. This is a huge area of talk in design thinking. You know, we can talk until the cows come home about how to design products and services. This was an introduction, kind of overview area to just kind of say what's really going on in the world at the moment within this realm. How to do this, you know, we cover in our workshops, and also, you know, we'll cover them further in our online university as we build that offering out. And there are universal principles of design and sort of human psychology that are relevant to absolutely everything, and this is where sort of design thinking is the core mindset and skill set. But then individually in each one of these types of products and services, we can drill deeper into specifics of what works, what can work. Example I gave about how to turn a t-shirt into a social experience might sound off the back of it, just as you hear it, might sound like a ridiculous idea, but actually when you think it through, it makes perfect sense. And so many products and services can be turned into something much bigger, with bigger potential to make more money, make more impact. Will you offer a workshop via live streaming or Zoom? The answer is very simple. Yes, we will. The workshop that we're doing this Saturday is a physical workshop for up to 10 people, and then we will offer it also via Zoom with virtual tickets. Specific details of that coming up literally this evening, so watch this space. And what we will do going forward with workshops is that we're going to be running them regularly, and both physically and via virtual tickets for those people that we can't reach right now physically. Thank you, Tequila, for asking that question and for watching as well. Are there any other questions tonight? Because I'm more than happy in this live stream to take questions and answer them. It's also a very good experience and exercise for me to see if I can really add any value on these. I'm learning as I go always. Um, so Fraser is asking, do great design thinking products and services always allow companies to set their prices at a premium? That's a very good question. Um, in design thinking, we're always thinking, how can we sell things for more than less? Okay, why would a company want to sell for less money and make less profits and so on? But at the same time, you can only sell to customers at a price that they're willing to pay. The right price is always the one that customers are willing to pay, and there's always sort of a distribution curve, as in, like, if you set your product at £1,000, let's say, and it's only really in practical sense worth £10, theoretically you're going to have always 2-3 crazy idiots, right, who will pay £1,000 for this. But that's not necessarily a way to build a sustainable business. If you price point it at £20, you might have 1,000 people buy it, but that's it. But if you price it at £10, people will buy it continuously, but you might not be making big profits off the back of that. So you're still not really running a profitable and sustainable business. So then the question is, with design thinking, how do we apply design thinking and inject design thinking into a product to increase the price so that customers are still willing to pay, but we can actually generate better profits and create a more sustainable enterprise? So that's called race to the top versus what Tesco, which I always hate and I'm happy for the rest of my life to sort of like talk about as a terrible example of customer service. Tesco will always do this like race to the bottom by cutting prices to a point where everyone hates everything, and it's really not the long-term sustainable strategy. Whereas Waitrose, year on year, they are knocking their performance out of the park, even though their products are more expensive than they're the most expensive supermarket in UK, but people are very dedicatedly buying at Waitrose because of great quality of products and very good service that has been designed to be like that, to entice people to come back and feel appreciated and welcomed and valued. Okay, so people want to feel valued, and they're willing to pay money for that. They're willing to give value for being valued. Okay, and in design thinking, it's always about how do we make people feel even more valued. In this particular example, this is why I'm asking you to ask me questions, because I value your opinion and your insights and your time here, and I want to provide that value back by answering to you. That's kind of what this medium allows me to do, and I want to leverage that in its entirety, and not just tonight, but every evening, once a week. In fact, I'm looking to ramp these up to talk pretty much once a day about different aspects, because I don't want to spoil it now, but I have a sort of announcement to make of something that I want to do, which is kind of a series of talks to start off with. So, very good question, Fraser. Design thinking is used to increase the value of the product so the customers pay a higher price without feeling bad about it, with actually feeling even better about it. In fact, there are some examples where, I've done UX design for a number of years of my life, and sometimes, companies would say, like, we have an issue of a product is not selling online. And we'd say, like, why is it not selling? They would say, we have no idea. What are you selling? We're selling a t-shirt. Okay, how much is a t-shirt? It's only $5.99. I would say, like, why is it so cheap? Well, because we want to give it at the cheapest possible price. And we say, okay, just put it at $25.99. And all they do is increase the price, and suddenly the t-shirt starts selling just by increasing the price. Why? Because people no longer are judging it, thinking that it's some really cheap, crappy material. They are actually understanding that this t-shirt is actually good enough quality, because that's the sort of expectation that they have. They kind of expect to pay $25.99 for a t-shirt as opposed to $5.99, which is just deemed as cheap. So sometimes even just upping the price of the product can enable sales, believe it or not. And this is the illogical sort of human psychology, right, where people judge things more on an emotional level as opposed to the logical level, that something can be done at a high enough quality at a low price, right? So again, design thinking can sometimes very simply fix these issues where, you know, someone might go as far as kind of completely redesigning the entire product as opposed to just saying, let's just up the price and see what happens. And then you do that, and it's like suddenly start selling. It's like, we're done. You know, we've got an actual valid business here now. Any other questions? I'm going to give you another sort of 10-20 seconds, and then if there's no more questions, I'll wrap up for tonight. But I'd like to thank everyone for listening in and asking questions. And Fraser, good question. What's not to like about design thinking? Okay, I'll give you an example of what's not to like about design thinking. Most people today want huge business success, and lots of profits and value and money and returns and everything without doing anything, without thinking about anything, without being innovative, without anything whatsoever, right? So what's not to like about design thinking is that design thinking is saying you're never going to make money without doing anything. And you know what's most valued these days? Cool, you know, solutions and innovative solutions to pretty much like everyday problems that people have. And that requires thinking, okay? That's why it's design thinking, you know, it's not just design, you know? So that's what's not to like about design thinking. If you don't want to use your mind and your creative intelligence, you just kind of want things to magically appear, then you are not going to do design thinking very well, because it requires people to fail and beat on their craft and beat on the ideas and come up with 100 ideas for one thing and then discard 99 of them and not feel hurt that, you know, 99 of their ideas haven't gone into making. So the other question I have here is, can you expand on the point where you said where you can't compete with Salesforce and Oracle's on technology platform basis, but on a community basis? So I didn't really say that. I said that, like, you know, the offerings of these companies are becoming so big that nowadays, you know, venture capitalists and, you know, big business thinkers are saying, like, if someone wants to build a social network, let's say, to compete with Facebook, it's going to be very hard. You know, Facebook's got 1.5 billion users that are very active. They're very happy. Look, I'm now on Facebook. I'm streaming to you live. I'm very happy with this. You know, even if someone else released some better streaming platform, we then have to move our community from here to there. And it's like, by the time we do this, it's not worth it. We're staying on Facebook. We're going to continue streaming live on Facebook for the foreseeable future. Community is the product as well. And so what design thinking is saying, it's like, look, Facebook's pretty good as a social network. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. What we want to do is leverage that and sit on top of that and build offerings that sit on that platform. And so we can actually build a very successful business just sitting on top of Facebook. It's already given us that utility of a social network, and it costs next to nothing. If we were to build our own Facebook, we would be here for forever and never actually do even half a good job, because again, you got to remember that Facebook as a company isn't just the website or the app. Behind that sits a huge array of data centers, sits a huge array of hardware infrastructure, connectivity, etc., etc. That's what makes this live streaming possible. It's the data center, not the app, you know? So for anyone to build a live streaming service like this, good luck. You know, you're going to be there for years, and you're not going to build even half as good a thing like this. let alone it having a community that asks questions during the live stream. So so the idea is to build your own community that can sit on top of these existing platforms and, you know, string experiences that are more like mashups and hooking into various other APIs, and, you know, treating experience and community and social aspects as one product with big P, and not looking to compete directly with Facebooks and Salesforces and so on of this world, because they are more like the utility companies of the new age, just like, you know, your gas and electricity suppliers are. You're not really easily going to go in and create a new gas and electricity supplier, because these incumbents are already sitting there very strong, with oftentimes with lots of money, capital, and so on. But you can build a service that sits on top of these utilities and offers a higher value experience, often a time that is easier to do, but actually higher value. So I'll give you an example, talking about data centers. In data centers, you will see that, like, you know, data centers don't really make money from leasing out. Typically, data center business model is that they'll lease out the square foot of the space. So companies can buy square foot of data center space and then put their own racks and units in there, servers and so on. And so they might be, let's say, they might be paying £1,000 a month for that rack space, the square foot. But then the company that's renting that square foot uses the data center platform to build their own service that, let's say, provides an API for people sending let's say SMS validations when people sign up on apps, something like Twilio. And then with that one rack space, or a bunch of those rack spaces, a company, you know, leasing out data center space at, let's say, 10 foot of data center space, can build almost $1 billion company off the back of those value-added services built on those racks. So they're paying $10,000 a month, but they're valued at $1 billion. Why? Because the experience that they're providing is of much higher value than that utility sitting underneath. And so, again, that's kind of like a race to the top, where product and service stack going upwards is always much more valuable than the utility sitting underneath. And yeah, Snapchat is another example of a design-led company where the CEO is a designer, and they've just released spectacles, extending that Snapchat experience. But interestingly, again, with Snap, they've built the thanks, Abdel. With Snapchat, they've already had that network, social network, and the community of people exchanging messages and videos and snaps and texts and so on. So now the spectacles come into that ecosystem, and it's become a hugely viral and hunted down product. Unlike, you know, what Google did with Google Glasses, where they were charging $2,000 for it, but there was no real kind of community backdrop off the back of it, and really kind of quite a naff integration with other you know, services. So there's kind of no real proper community experience off the back of this piece of hardware, and none of that's kind of ecosystem. Whereas with Snapchat, they've released the spectacles only once they've established good community and traction and this kind of culture of sharing and communicating. So the spectacles play nicely into that. I wouldn't be surprised to see Snapchat release other products that play into that ecosystem to provide a broader range of experiences and sort of experiential lock-in for Snapchatters around the world. And we certainly keep an eye on that very closely, because we're working with the most influential Snapchatters around the world, and we have access to spectacles here, and always analyzing and are interested to see what comes up next and how it works. You know, some of the reviews of spectacles will come in, although they don't fit on my nose so well, or, you know, they, like, I wouldn't wear them at night and so on. But some of these things are design challenges which, for products they exist in all sorts of realms, and products often don't work as well, in certain types of situations. But customers are still willing to have those products and services, knowing that, nothing's really kind of perfect. So as long as we can balance these kind of ups and downs, we will create things that work. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to take one or two more before I wrap up. Otherwise, once again, I'd like to thank you for listening. And next week, I'm going to be talking about money and applying design thinking for the money realm of business. And I suppose many of you will find that interesting. Any more questions before I wrap up? 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. See you next week. Please share this to your friends and invite other people into the group. This weekend we're running the workshop and design thinking 1-day intensive, and there's going to be virtual tickets as well available. More information to come this evening. Thank you so much. Bye bye.